What if I told you the most respected virtue in fishing, patience, is actually the #1 reason you go home empty-handed from a day on the ice? Sounds crazy, right? Today, we're tackling a controversial one. Is sitting on the same ice hole for more than 15 minutes the single biggest mistake an angler can make? Stick with me, because by the end of this, you'll understand the subtle signs that a hole is dead, and you'll have a clear strategy that puts you on top of active fish, not just frozen water. We're going to uncover why the wait-it-out approach, passed down from generation to generation, might be a total myth. So, what do you think right now? Is 15 minutes too long, too short, or just right? Drop your first thought in the comments before we even get started. I want to see where everyone stands. For generations, we've been taught that good things come to those who wait. Your grandpa probably told you to pick a good spot, be quiet, and just wait for the fish to bite. It's a romantic idea, and sometimes it even works. This belief is so ingrained in fishing culture that it feels wrong to question it. We get comfortable. We set up our shack, turn on the heater, and settle in. The thought of packing up and drilling another 10 holes in the biting wind seems like a lot of work, so we wait. We convince ourselves that a massive school of perch or walleye is just about to move through. This habit is born from a mix of tradition, comfort, and a fundamental misunderstanding of what's really happening beneath the ice. But in a sport where time is limited and conditions can be tough, this passive approach can be the difference between a full bucket and a long, cold day of staring at a motionless spring bobber. Let's first tackle the core conflict here. It's a battle between two philosophies, patience versus proactivity. The patient angler believes that fish are cruising and will eventually find their presentation. They put their faith in their spot and their lure. The proactive angler, on the other hand, sees themselves as a hunter. They believe that the majority of fish in any given area are inactive, and the key to success is to go find the small percentage that are actively feeding. Think of it like this. Are you setting up a roadside fruit stand and hoping customers drive by? Or are you a door-to-door salesman actively seeking out customers? On the ice, being proactive means using your tools, primarily your auger and your electronics, to constantly search for those biting fish. It's a mindset shift from waiting for the action to happen to creating the action yourself. This fundamental difference in approach is what we're dissecting today. So what exactly is this 15-minute rule we're talking about? It's not some ancient law written in stone. It's a modern strategic guideline, a mental clock you keep running for every hole you fish. The rule simply states that if you have not seen a fish on your electronics or had a bite within roughly 15 minutes of dropping your line, it's time to move. It's not about being impatient, it's about being efficient. This time frame is a calculated average. It gives you enough time to drop your lure, let the area settle down from the noise of drilling, and attract any nearby active fish. If nothing shows interest in that window, the probability of that spot suddenly turning on drops dramatically. Think of it as a strategic retreat. You're not giving up. You're just redeploying your efforts to a more promising location. It forces you to stop hoping and start hunting. To understand why moving is so critical, you have to understand the fish. Let's talk about common targets like walleye and perch. These fish are not lazy. They are often nomadic, constantly roaming in schools along weed lines, drop-offs, and basin floors in search of their next meal. They are predators on the move. They don't just sit in one place waiting for a hapless minnow to swim by. They are actively hunting. So if you drill a hole and there are no fish there, waiting for an hour doesn't guarantee a school will show up. You are betting on a random intersection of your location and their travel path. A much better strategy is to go find their travel path. By drilling multiple holes and spending just a few minutes at each, you dramatically increase the odds that you will place your bait right in front of one of these cruising schools. You're intercepting them, not waiting for them. Now, let's be clear. This rule isn't absolute. There are exceptions where staying put is the right call. The most obvious one is when you're targeting a specific known piece of structure. Imagine you're fishing for a monster lake trout that you know lives on a deep underwater hump. These fish can be territorial and less nomadic. In this case, it might pay to sit longer, cycling through different lures to trigger a bite from a fish you know is in the area. Another exception is when your electronics are showing fish, but they just won't commit. If you're marking fish constantly, you're in the right place. The problem isn't location, it's presentation. This is the time to downsize your lure, change your jigging cadence, or switch bait. But if your screen is blank and your rod is still, you're not in the game. You're just a spectator. The key is to know why you're waiting. We need to completely reframe how we think about our number one tool on the ice. I'm talking about your auger. For many, the auger is just a tool to start the day. You drill your 2 or 3 holes, put it away, and that's it. This is a massive mistake. Your auger is not just a hole driller. It is your primary fish-finding tool. It is the great equalizer. It allows you to explore the underwater world, which is completely hidden from view. Every new hole you drill is like a new cast in open water. It's a chance to present your bait to a new group of fish in a new spot. Anglers who are consistently successful are the ones who are not afraid to burn some gas or battery life. They'll drill 20, 30, even 50 holes in a day, constantly searching. Stop thinking of drilling as a chore. Start thinking of it as the most important part of your strategy. Let's talk about reading the silence. Your electronics, whether it's a flasher, a graph, or a camera, are your eyes under the water. They are your truth tellers. If you drop your transducer into a hole and jig for 5 minutes without marking a single thing, the screen is screaming at you, there is nothing here. It's not a maybe, it's a definite no. This is the moment of truth. You can choose to believe the old wisdom and wait, hoping for a miracle. Or you can believe the real-time data right in front of your face. A blank screen is the ultimate permission to move on. Don't argue with it. Don't second-guess it. Trust your gear. The purpose of electronics isn't just to show you fish. It's also to show you the absence of fish. And the absence of fish is the clearest signal you'll ever get that it's time to fire up the auger and try a new spot. We all love the idea of a honey hole, that one magical spot that produces fish all day long. And while these spots can exist, they are far rarer than we think. More often than not, a spot is hot for a specific period, and then it dies. A school of perch might move through a small flat in the morning, giving you 30 minutes of incredible action. But once that school moves on, the spot can be a complete dead zone for the rest of the day. The mistake is falling in love with the memory of the bite. You sit there for the next 2 hours, trying to recapture that magic, but the party is over. The fish have left the building. Successful anglers understand that spots are temporary. They exploit the bite while it's hot, and the second it cools off, they're on the move, looking for the next hotspot. They don't fish history, they fish the present. Here's a critical concept. You can be sitting directly on top of hundreds of fish and not get a single bite. Why? Because you need to differentiate between active fish and inactive fish. Active fish are the ones that are feeding. They are aggressive, and they are the ones you can actually catch. Inactive fish might be suspended, bellies to the bottom, just digesting or conserving energy. They have zero interest in your lure. The biggest mistake is to find a school of inactive fish on your sonar and then spend an hour trying to coax them into biting. You are wasting your precious time. The better strategy is to keep moving until you find a school of fish where the marks on your flasher are aggressive. You want to see them streak up off the bottom to inspect your lure. That's the sign of an active, catchable fish. Your goal isn't just to find fish, it's to find the right fish. Picture a typical scene on a frozen lake. On one side, you have Angler A. He's in a comfortable pop-up shack, heater blasting. He drilled his 2 holes at sunrise and hasn't moved since. He's staring at his rod tip, waiting patiently, convinced his spot is the best on the lake. On the other side is Angler B. She has no shack. She has her auger, her flasher, and a bucket. She drills a hole, fishes it for 10 minutes, nothing. She moves 20 yards and drills another. After the 5th hole, her flasher lights up. She pulls 3 perch out back to back. The action slows, so she moves again. By the end of the day, Angler A is cold and has 2 small fish to show for his patience. Angler B has a bucket full of keepers. Who had the better strategy? Who adapted to the conditions? It's almost always the one who was willing to move. Let's break down the energy equation. Many anglers resist moving because drilling holes feels like a lot of physical work, and it can be, especially with a manual auger. But let's consider the other side of the coin, the mental and emotional energy of waiting. Sitting for hours in the cold, staring at an empty hole with no bites, is mentally draining. It's boring. It kills your confidence and your motivation. Which is truly more exhausting? An hour of physical work drilling 20 or 30 holes that results in finding active fish, or 6 hours of sitting still, slowly freezing, filled with disappointment and boredom. I would argue that the mental fatigue of failure is far worse than the physical effort of searching. Proactive fishing keeps you engaged, focused, and warm. It turns a passive waiting game into an exciting hunt. In the world of open water fishing, everyone understands the concept of covering water. You use a trolling motor or drift to cast to as many different spots as possible until you find fish. For some reason, this logic often gets lost when the water freezes. But the principle is exactly the same. Ice fishing is just a slower, more methodical way of covering water. Every hole you drill is a portal to a new spot. Drilling a grid of holes over a point or a flat is the ice fishing equivalent of fan casting a shoreline from a boat. If you only drill 2 holes, you've only made 2 casts all day. Can you imagine going bass fishing and only making 2 casts? It's absurd. You have to think of the entire frozen lake as a giant grid. Your job is to explore as many squares on that grid as you can to find the ones holding the active fish. We have to be honest with ourselves about why we often choose to stay put. A lot of the time, it comes down to the lure of comfort. Once the shelter is up, the heater is on, and you've got your chair and coffee set just right, the thought of tearing it all down to move 50 yards is daunting. It's a hassle, so we make excuses. We say, "I'll just give it another 30 minutes," or "the evening bite should be starting soon." We are letting our desire for comfort override good fishing strategy. This comfort zone is a trap. It prioritizes convenience over effectiveness. The most successful anglers are often the most mobile, and that means they sacrifice a little bit of comfort for a whole lot more action. You have to ask yourself what you came for, to be comfortable or to catch fish. Sometimes you can't have both. So, how do you move efficiently? You need a system. One of the most effective is the leapfrog method. Instead of drilling one hole, fishing it, then moving, you work in a series. Start by drilling a line of 5 to 10 holes, spaced maybe 20 yards apart, across a piece of structure you want to investigate. Then go back to the first hole. Spend just 5 to 10 minutes there. Check with your electronics. Make a few aggressive jigs. If you get nothing, don't even sit down. Just grab your gear and move to the next hole. Repeat the process down the line. This method is incredibly efficient. It minimizes setup and teardown time at each spot and keeps you in a constant state of searching. You're not just randomly wandering, you're executing a clear, methodical plan to dissect the structure and locate the fish. It's a professional approach. The 15-minute rule is a guideline, not a law. There are times when it makes sense to give a hole a little more time. The key indicator is your electronics. If you drop down and immediately mark a fish that comes in to inspect your lure but doesn't bite, you shouldn't leave right away. You are in the right place, you just have the wrong presentation. This is your cue to stay for another 5 or 10 minutes and experiment. Try a different color. Use a smaller lure. Tip it with a different kind of bait. Change your jigging cadence from aggressive to subtle. You're trying to solve a puzzle. But even in this scenario, the clock is still ticking. If you spend another 10 minutes changing things up and those fish still won't commit or they swim away, it's time to cut your losses. They've told you they're not in the mood. Go find some that are. This is a crucial mindset shift. You need to stop thinking of holes as either good or bad. Every single hole you drill, even one that yields 0 fish, provides you with valuable information. A dead hole is not a failure. It is a piece of data. It tells you where the fish are not. If you drill a line of 5 holes across a point and none of them have fish, you have just learned that the fish are not on that part of the point right now. This is incredibly useful. It allows you to eliminate water and narrow down your search. You can now focus your efforts on a different area, like the deeper edge of the point or the inside turn. Anglers who only sit on 1 or 2 holes all day learn nothing. Anglers who drill dozens of holes are constantly gathering data and building a clear picture of what's happening across the entire lake. Let's directly challenge Grandpa's wisdom. Our grandfathers and the old-timers who taught us to fish were great fishermen, but they were working with limited tools and information. They didn't have high-powered electric augers, GPS mapping, and sensitive sonar flashers. For them, drilling a hole with a hand auger or a spud bar was a major physical investment. It made sense to pick a spot carefully and sit on it because moving was incredibly difficult. Their philosophy of patience was born from necessity, but today we live in a different world. Technology has made us mobile and given us underwater eyes. To cling to an old strategy when the tools have completely changed is like using a horse and buggy when you have a car in the garage. We can respect the traditions, but we must adapt our tactics to the modern tools we have at our disposal. Consider the impact of fishing pressure, especially on popular, easy-to-access lakes. Fish are not dumb. When they see dozens of lures and hear the constant noise of anglers every single weekend, they become conditioned. They get wary. They don't sit still in obvious spots for very long. The schools are more scattered and are constantly on the move to avoid pressure. On these waters, the mobile angler has an even bigger advantage. The sit-and-wait angler is fishing in the wake of the run-and-gun angler. The proactive fisherman finds the school, picks off the most aggressive fish, and is gone by the time the patient fisherman even realizes there was a bite. In today's high-pressure fishing environment, mobility is not just an advantage, it's a necessity for consistent success. You have to stay one step ahead of the fish and ahead of other fishermen. I'll never forget the day this lesson truly hit home for me. I was fishing a community spot, sitting in my shack, feeling miserable. I had been there for 3 hours without a single bite. Meanwhile, I could see this one old guy out in the open, just walking and drilling. He looked like he was working way too hard, but every 20 minutes or so, I'd see his rod bend. He was just methodically moving from hole to hole. Finally, my frustration beat my laziness. I packed up my gear, went out, and just started drilling. On my 7th hole, I hit them. A massive school of crappies. I caught my limit in 45 minutes. That day, the old guy didn't say a word to me, but he taught me the most important lesson in ice fishing. Fish are where you find them, and you don't find them by sitting still. It completely changed my approach forever. It's critical to understand that the 15-minute rule is more of a mindset than a literal stopwatch. Don't get so hung up on the exact number of minutes that you're constantly checking your watch. The core idea is to adopt an aggressive, searching, and proactive mentality. It's about having a plan before you even get on the ice. Your plan should be to explore, to gather information, and to hunt. The rule is simply a tool to keep you from falling into the trap of passive waiting. It's a mental trigger that reminds you to ask, is this spot productive? Am I getting feedback? If the answer is no, then the plan dictates that you move. Whether that takes you 7 minutes or 17 minutes doesn't matter. What matters is that you're making a conscious, strategic decision based on evidence, rather than sitting around and just hoping for blind luck to save your day. So let's put this all together into a new game plan for your next trip out on the ice. First, start with a plan based on a lake map. Identify several potential spots, not just one. When you get to your first spot, don't just drill one hole. Drill a series of them, maybe 5 to 10, to cover the structure. Second, approach each hole with purpose. Drop your transducer and immediately assess for life. If you see fish, great. If not, start an aggressive jigging sequence to call fish in. Give it a solid, focused effort for a few minutes. Third, obey the feedback. If after 10 to 15 minutes you have seen 0 signs of life, no marks on the flasher, no bites, then move. Don't hesitate. Don't second guess. Just move to the next hole in your series. Repeat this process. You are no longer waiting for fish. You are a hunter, systematically eliminating dead water until you find your target. This is how you take control of your success. So, what's the final verdict? We've learned that sitting still is a gamble, while moving is a strategy. We've established that most of the fish we're after are constantly on the move, and our job is to intercept them, not to wait for them to find us. The biggest takeaway here, the real aha moment, is realizing your auger isn't just for starting your day. It's your most important search tool throughout the day. You're not just a fisherman, you're a hunter moving across a frozen landscape. This changes your entire approach from passive waiting to active hunting. It puts you in control. No more blaming the fish or bad luck. Your success becomes a direct result of your effort and strategy. Thanks so much for watching and thinking critically about this with me. If this helped you, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content that breaks down the why of fishing. Now I have to ask you again, after hearing all this, what's the longest you've ever waited on a single hole, and did it pay off? Tell me your story in the comments. I read every single one. Let's get a real debate going.